The courtroom smelled of polished wood, faint disinfectant, and old leather-bound law books. The morning sunlight slanted through tall windows, painting rectangles of warmth across the floor. Officers in crisp uniforms whispered softly among themselves, the occasional shuffle of papers breaking the otherwise solemn silence. The judge, an older man with graying hair and a careful, deliberate voice, sat behind his massive oak desk, reviewing a stack of case files. Today's docket was ordinary, or at least, that's what everyone assumed. At the front, a police K9 sat rigidly at attention beside its handler. The dog was a German shepherd, sleek, powerful, trained to obey without hesitation. Its eyes were alert, scanning the room with quiet intelligence, and every muscle in its body radiated focus. The handler, Officer Martinez, adjusted the dog's harness, glancing down at the leash in his hand. "Stay," he murmured, almost under his breath. The dog's ears flicked in acknowledgement, yet there was a subtle tension in its stance, as if it sensed something no one else could. The spectators section was mostly empty, save for a few family members, a social worker, and a small child sitting quietly in a folding chair near the back. The girl was 3 years old, barely reaching the seat in front of her. Her hair was tied in a neat little braid, eyes wide and curious. She clutched a faded stuffed bear with one hand, while the other fiddled nervously with the hem of her small dress. Social workers had insisted she attend the hearing today, though no one truly expected her to play any role in the proceedings. Children were meant to sit quietly, to observe if necessary, and to stay out of the grown-ups' serious matters. But this child had a focus that was impossible to ignore. From the moment she entered the courtroom, her gaze had found the K9. She did not notice the shiny gavel, the formal robes of the judge, or the rows of stiff chairs. She noticed the dog. Her eyes narrowed slightly, scanning every detail, the way it sat, the tilt of its head, the subtle tension along its spine. The dog, in turn, reacted in a way that was almost imperceptible. Its ears twitched, nostrils flaring just enough to show that it recognized something in the little girl. A handler might have dismissed the response as coincidence, but Officer Martinez felt a prickle of unease down his spine. The dog's behavior was precise, measured, alert but calm, like a finely tuned instrument detecting a note only it could hear. The judge called the session to order, his gavel tapping once, twice, and then a soft, final strike. "We will begin the hearing on Case 23-CV-412, pertaining to the custody review and placement of Miss Leila Harper," he said, his voice steady and authoritative. Murmurs swept through the few adults present, and lawyers straightened in their seats, flipping open folders and reviewing notes. The air was tense but controlled, the kind of environment where every movement was deliberate and observed. Leila, the little girl, shifted in her seat. She had been quiet until now, but her attention never wavered from the dog. She squirmed, pointed slightly, and whispered something to her stuffed bear. The social worker, Ms. Thompson, leaned down and said softly, "Shhh, Leila, sit still. This is important." But the girl didn't comply. Her hand rose, small and trembling, and her finger pointed unmistakably toward the German shepherd. No one expected this. A murmur ran through the courtroom. A few of the officers exchanged glances, unsure whether the child's action was playful or coincidental. "It's just a kid," whispered one, attempting reassurance. But Officer Martinez tightened his grip on the leash. The dog's eyes remained locked on the girl, body rigid but calm. Its tail was still, yet every muscle seemed ready to spring. It was as if the dog understood more than the humans in the room, something they were blind to, something beyond the child's years and comprehension. The judge paused, raising a hand. "Ms. Thompson, please ensure the child remains seated and quiet," he said, his tone gentle but firm. The social worker nodded, moving closer. "Leila, honey, can you sit down for me?" The child's lips pressed together, but she did not move. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, eyes never leaving the dog. The courtroom felt heavier. The usual order and predictability of the morning had vanished, replaced by a subtle but intense tension. It was in this moment that the K9 stirred slightly, shifting its weight, its ears perking up. The handler noticed and felt a twinge of concern. "Easy, boy," he whispered, though his voice was calm. The dog obeyed the basic command, but its eyes never left the child. Something about her was stirring long-buried memories, instincts embedded through years of service, in situations that were intense, dangerous, and tragic. The little girl then whispered, barely audible at first, "Him." The word cut through the quiet. Adults leaned forward instinctively, trying to catch what she had said. Lawyers froze, pens hovering over legal pads. Officers straightened. The judge's gavel rested midair as he stared at the girl, uncertain. And the dog? Its body tensed more visibly, a low growl forming at the base of its throat, not aggressive but warning. It was an alert, a reaction to recognition. No one could have anticipated the power in that single, soft word. It carried weight far beyond a toddler's typical vocabulary. There was meaning in her tone, in the certainty behind it, a clarity and understanding that belonged to someone who had witnessed something important, something dangerous. The child's gaze was steady, unwavering, and full of intent, as if she were trying to communicate something adults had long overlooked. Officer Martinez felt a chill run through him. He had trained the dog for years, witnessed countless alerts, and learned to read every subtle signal. But this was different. The dog was not responding to a threat in the moment. It was reacting to memory, to intuition, to something in the child that humans could not yet understand. The small voice of the girl had activated instincts embedded deep within the dog, instincts tied to a past event long forgotten by most adults. The judge cleared his throat, breaking the spell. "I see the child is attempting to communicate. Ms. Thompson, please assist her." But the social worker didn't move immediately. She, too, recognized that something extraordinary was unfolding. The girl's hand remained raised, pointing at the K9. The courtroom fell silent, the weight of anticipation pressing down on every person present. Even in this ordinary courthouse, in this routine hearing, the ordinary rules had changed. A 3-year-old girl and a police dog were at the center of something no one yet fully comprehended. And as the morning light continued to stream through the windows, illuminating the polished floor and serious faces, the tension lingered, silent, electric, and unbroken. Something important was about to happen, something that would reveal truths long buried, that would connect past and present in ways no one had imagined. And the entire courtroom, from the judge to the last officer, waited with bated breath, knowing, even if they couldn't articulate it yet, that the smallest witness and the most disciplined K9 had already begun to tell a story far larger than themselves. The courtroom had descended into a peculiar quiet. Every adult present, judges, officers, lawyers, felt it, though none could put it into words. The 3-year-old girl's tiny hand remained raised, pointing unwaveringly at the German shepherd. The dog, in turn, did not blink, did not shift its gaze. Its ears twitched slightly, nostrils flaring, and every muscle in its body hummed with anticipation. It was a silent conversation, invisible to the humans who had come expecting routine proceedings. Ms. Thompson, the social worker, crouched down beside the child, gently taking her hand in an attempt to lower it. "Sweetheart, it's okay," she whispered softly. "You need to sit still for a little while." Leela's eyes, however, were wide, unwavering, locked onto the K9 like she could see right through its fur, its harness, and its powerful frame. Her tiny fingers stiffened, resisting Ms. Thompson's guidance. She was not merely curious. She was certain. Officer Martinez noticed the tension immediately. The dog's posture had changed subtly, the tail still, but the body ready, coiled like a spring. Every professional in the room sensed something, though they did not yet know what. The air seemed heavier, charged with anticipation, as if the room itself held its breath. A quiet murmur ran through the spectators. One of the officers leaned toward his colleague. "Is she pointing at him for real?" he whispered, disbelief in his voice. The child's voice, small but steady, cut through the tension. "Him." The two words, soft and deliberate, echoed faintly in the room. They carried weight far beyond the toddler's age. The judge paused, eyes narrowing. Did you say something, young lady?" he asked, trying to remain composed. But even as he spoke, he could feel the courtroom shift. Lawyers stopped writing. Officers stiffened. The dog's eyes were unwavering, almost human in their focus. "What do you mean by him?" Ms. Thompson asked gently, kneeling closer to Leela's level. The girl didn't blink. Her lips parted and she repeated, "Him not safe." A hush fell over the courtroom. The words were simple, almost poetic in their brevity, yet their meaning was seismic. The dog's low growl vibrated through the air, more a warning than aggression, and the handler instinctively stepped closer. "Easy," Officer Martinez said quietly, but his hand rested firmly on the leash. He had been trained to read his dog, and this was no ordinary reaction. Something had triggered a memory, a recognition that went far beyond instinct. The judge adjusted his glasses, frowning. "Ms. Thompson, perhaps you can clarify what she's trying to communicate." The social worker nodded, though uncertainty colored her expression. She had dealt with trauma survivors before, but children this young rarely spoke with such precision about danger or past experiences. Leela's words were unnerving in their clarity. As the courtroom collectively tried to make sense of what was happening, the story began to unfold silently. The K-9, trained for years in search, rescue, and protection, had been involved in a case years prior, one that ended abruptly and without resolution. A missing child, a failed rescue, a quiet reassignment. The officers present today knew fragments of the story but not the full truth. And yet the dog remembered. Every scent, every instinct, every subtle nuance of fear and danger. It all surged to the surface the instant it locked eyes with Leela. The child's stare deepened. She was not playing a game. She was not imagining a story she had heard. Her memory, or perhaps her instinct, was guiding her finger. Every eye in the courtroom could see it. She was pointing at the dog for a reason, and it was more urgent than any adult had anticipated. The murmurs grew. "She's too young to know anything," one attorney whispered under his breath. Another officer shook his head. "No, she's telling us something. Watch the dog," he said quietly, voice tinged with awe. It was impossible to ignore the connection. The handler, too, realized that the K-9 was not merely responding to the present moment. It was reacting to a history that humans had long attempted to bury, instincts tuned to protect children, to recognize danger that words alone could not describe. Judge Harlan tapped his gavel lightly on the desk, but even the sharp sound seemed muted. "All right," he said slowly. "Let us proceed carefully. Ms. Thompson, please continue." The social worker knelt beside the girl, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Leela, can you tell me what you mean? Who is not safe?" The child hesitated, her small lips pressing together in concentration. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper but perfectly clear, she said, "Him the man. He took me." A collective shiver ran through the room. The dog growled again, low and steady, standing now instead of sitting. Officer Martinez stepped forward, heart racing, recognizing the signal. The dog's training was clear, alert to danger, ready to protect. And now it was confirming what the girl had just said without words. Every person in the courtroom could feel it, the electric charge of truth, danger, and the weight of events long forgotten. The judge rose slightly from his bench, leaning forward. "Please, everyone remain calm. Officers, secure the courtroom if necessary. Ms. Thompson, continue speaking with the child." The courtroom buzzed with silent tension. Lawyers flipped through their notes frantically. Witnesses and spectators froze. Even the sunlight seemed to pause, casting long shadows across the polished wooden floor. Leela's eyes remained locked on the dog. "He bad man," she said again, voice firmer this time. The handler instinctively stepped closer to the child, protective but cautious. The dog moved slightly toward her, nose twitching, tail lowered in a controlled manner, as if acknowledging the girl's words. It was a silent but unmistakable moment. The child's memory and the dog's instinct had intersected in a way no adult had predicted. No one spoke. The weight of the child's revelation hung in the air like thick fog. The judge, the lawyers, the officers, everyone realized that the hearing had shifted. It was no longer about routine custody procedures. It was now about the unseen, the unspoken, and the truths that only a child and a dog could perceive together. Miss Thompson knelt lower, her eyes gentle and encouraging. "Leela, can you tell me more?" The girl's small hand remained raised, trembling slightly but firm. "He's scary, take me." Each word was deliberate, simple, yet it carried a story beyond comprehension. Officer Martinez felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. He had trained dogs, worked high-stakes cases, and yet nothing prepared him for this convergence of memory, trauma, and instinct. The room was silent once more. Every adult present understood, without needing further explanation, that something critical had just begun. The ordinary courthouse, the routine hearing, the quiet morning, all had been shattered by two small figures, a 3-year-old girl and a police dog. One spoke with words, the other with instinct. Both conveyed truths that humans, with all their authority, had overlooked for years. In that moment, a realization settled over the courtroom. The smallest witnesses often see the most, and the most disciplined protectors often sense what humans cannot. And together, they could reveal a story that no one was prepared to confront. The judge cleared his throat again, voice steadier this time but still careful. "We will take a brief recess," he said. "This matter requires review." The murmurs began anew, but no one could take their eyes off the child or the dog. Something had been awakened, something powerful, urgent, and impossible to ignore. And in the quiet tension of the courthouse, everyone waited, holding their breath, for the next piece of truth to reveal itself. The courtroom remained frozen, every person in mid-motion, as the 3-year-old's voice echoed in the room. "Not safe." 2 words, so simple yet heavier than any testimony or legal argument could carry. Officers leaned forward instinctively, lawyers stopped scribbling, and the judge's gavel hovered midair, waiting, unsure how to respond. The weight of her statement pressed down like a physical force, palpable, undeniable. Officer Martinez felt his heartbeat quicken. He had trained his dog through countless high-risk operations, yet nothing had prepared him for this moment. The K9's eyes were fixed on the child, unwavering, body coiled but calm. Its low, rumbling growl resonated with certainty, a warning to anyone or anything that might pose danger. The dog was communicating in the only way it could, through instinct, memory, and vigilance. The judge adjusted his glasses, leaning forward slightly. "Miss Harper," he said gently but firmly, "I understand you said someone is not safe. Can you tell me what you mean?" He glanced at the social worker, then at the officers, and finally at the dog. The tension in the room was almost unbearable. Everyone felt it, the quiet, electric sense that something extraordinary was unfolding. Leela's small eyes darted to the dog, then back to the adults. Her voice, soft yet crystal clear, repeated the words, "Him not safe." There was no hesitation, no ambiguity, only absolute certainty. The social worker, Ms. Thompson, felt a chill run through her spine. She had worked with children who had survived trauma, but rarely had she encountered one who could articulate danger with such precision at this age. The judge nodded slowly, trying to maintain order, though his voice betrayed curiosity and unease. "Ms. Thompson, please help her explain." The social worker knelt beside the child again, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Sweetheart, can you tell me who you mean?" Leela hesitated for a brief moment, tiny hands gripping her stuffed bear. Then, with a voice firm despite her age, she said, "The man. He took me." The courtroom collectively inhaled. That small utterance, delivered with the authority of lived experience, carried weight no one could ignore. Lawyers exchanged uneasy glances, scribbling notes and murmuring quietly. Officers stiffened, instinctively scanning the room. And the K9, it shifted slightly, standing now rather than sitting, nostrils flaring, eyes locked on the child, tail low but tense. The dog's behavior confirmed what the girl had just said, alerting, protective, insistent. Officer Martinez's mind raced. The dog's training had always included detecting danger, responding to threats, and protecting children. Yet this was no ordinary alert. The dog's reactions aligned perfectly with Leela's words, signaling a recognition that went far beyond instinct. It was memory, trauma, and loyalty converging into a single, undeniable presence. The handler could feel the courtroom's tension pressing against him like a tangible weight. "Your Honor," whispered one of the officers, "the dog, it's reacting to the child, not the surroundings, it's something from its past." The judge raised an eyebrow, curiosity and caution mixing in equal measure. "Explain," he said, voice calm but commanding. The officer swallowed, then began. "This K9 was involved in a case years ago, a missing child. Something happened, the investigation was closed abruptly and the dog was reassigned. But it remembers, instinctively, and now it recognizes the danger again." The room went deathly silent. Lawyers froze mid-note, jurors stiffened in their seats, and even the judge leaned forward, intrigued. The child's memory, or perhaps her instinct, had intersected with the dog's trained memory. Together, they were revealing a truth that adults had missed for years. Ms. Thompson crouched closer to Leela, speaking gently. "Do you remember where it happened, honey? Can you tell me what he did?" The child's small lips pressed together, eyes locked on the dog for reassurance. Then she whispered, almost inaudibly, "In the house. Dark, he hurt me." The courtroom shuddered collectively. Officers immediately exchanged serious, urgent glances. The dog's growl deepened, more insistent, though still controlled. Officer Martinez felt the hairs rise on the back of his neck. He had never seen a K9 react like this in a courtroom, with no immediate threat present, only a memory, a recognition, and a need to protect. The judge motioned for a recess, though no one moved immediately. Everyone's attention was riveted to the child and the dog, two small but powerful figures commanding the room without words beyond those crucial two. Not safe. Even the spectators were frozen, realizing that what had begun as a routine custody hearing had transformed into something extraordinary, a revelation of danger, memory, and instinct working together. Lawyers began quietly reviewing files, eyes scanning for clues, case numbers, or anything that could explain the girl's statements. Officers pulled out old records from decades-old investigations, seeking connections between the dog's prior assignments and the present case. Each document, each scribbled note, suggested fragments of a story no one had pieced together fully before. The child's words were now guiding a legal system that had operated blind to key details for years. Officer Martinez knelt beside the dog, voice calm but urgent. "Focus, boy, stay calm." The dog's ears twitched, but it remained alert, locked on the child. It had recognized her presence, understood her fear, and was silently signaling that the danger was real. The handler's training allowed him to interpret this behavior. The dog was signaling threat, memory, and recognition simultaneously, a convergence of instinct and lived experience. Ms. Thompson tried to maintain a calm demeanor, though her own heart raced. "Leela, can you show us anything? Where it happened?" The girl's tiny finger trembled but remained pointed, her gaze never leaving the dog. The low, rumbling growl intensified as if the dog were agreeing, reinforcing the child's memories. It was an extraordinary display, a perfect, silent partnership between human and canine. The judge cleared his throat. "This court will need to pause. Officers, legal counsel, and social services, please coordinate. We must ensure the child's statements are properly documented and assessed." Everyone in the room complied, though they did so carefully, aware that the child's voice and the dog's instincts had shifted the narrative entirely. What had begun as a procedural hearing had become a potential breakthrough in an unresolved case, decades in the making. Outside the courtroom, murmurs spread among courthouse staff and officers alike. The story would travel quickly: a 3-year-old child, a police dog, and 2 words that stopped a courtroom. But inside, the adults knew the real significance went far deeper. The child's instinct, shaped by trauma, had converged with the dog's memory and training to reveal danger long ignored or forgotten. For a few silent minutes, the courthouse was united in a shared understanding. Something critical had been uncovered, and it could not be ignored. As the recess was called, Ms. Thompson knelt beside Leela, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. The girl's finger remained pointed, unwavering. The dog shifted slightly, lowering its head to meet the child's gaze, a subtle acknowledgement passing between them. The handler breathed deeply, understanding fully now that this dog was more than trained muscle. It was witness, protector, and guide. In that moment, the quiet courtroom held its collective breath. The smallest voice in the room had spoken, and the most disciplined K9 had listened. Together, they were about to uncover truths buried beneath paperwork, forgotten memories, and time. And the adults, despite all their training, authority, and experience, could only wait, watching the extraordinary bond between child and dog as it revealed a story no one else could have told. The day that began as ordinary, calm, and procedural had shifted irrevocably. The child had spoken. The dog had responded. And the courtroom, once confident in its routine, now knew that the next steps would reveal the truth long hidden, guided by the smallest witness and the most loyal protector. Long before today, long before the polished floors and hushed whispers of this small courthouse, the German Shepherd had been something else entirely. He had been a young, eager K9, assigned to search and rescue operations, trained for every imaginable emergency. Lost children, fleeing suspects, hostile environments. But one case had changed him, etched into his memory like a scar that could never fully heal. It was 3 years ago in a quiet suburb not far from here. A young girl had gone missing, 4 years old at the time, bright-eyed and full of laughter. The community had erupted in panic. Officers were mobilized, neighbors combed the streets, and the K9 was called in. The dog had picked up the scent immediately, following it through narrow alleys, dense woods, and abandoned buildings. He had worked tirelessly, nose to the ground, instincts sharp and focused. But something went wrong. The search led to a house on the outskirts of town. It was dark, quiet, and suffocating, filled with shadows that even the dog instinctively avoided. Inside, the young girl had been hiding, terrified, while the perpetrator, a man whose presence radiated danger, moved silently through the house. The dog had found her, nose twitching, body tense, every instinct screaming to act. But before he could intervene fully, officers arrived too late. The perpetrator fled, the child was rescued, and the dog had been left to process failure, frustration, and the lingering scent of fear. The investigation had ended abruptly, with a quiet closure that never satisfied the dog or the officers who understood the stakes. Files were filed away. Reports were closed. Yet the dog remembered every detail: the scent of the house, the feel of the carpet beneath small feet, the tremor of fear in a child's presence. His handlers called him sensitive and reassigned him. But no label could erase the memories burned into his instincts. Now in the courthouse, those memories were awakening. The scent in the room, the subtle cues in the child's presence, the way her small fingers pointed, triggered recollection. The dog stiffened, muscles taut, eyes locked on Leela. Every subtle twitch of her body resonated with echoes from that old case, as though the past and present were converging in this one moment. Officer Martinez watched with a mixture of awe and concern. He had seen dogs react to danger before, but this was different. This was memory layered with instinct, memory that had been dormant for years yet never forgotten. He could feel the tension radiating from the K9's body, a living testament to the old case and its unresolved threads. The child in front of him was small, innocent, yet she radiated urgency that matched the dog's alertness. The judge observed silently, aware now that this hearing was no longer procedural. "What is happening here?" he murmured, almost to himself. He glanced at the child, then at the dog, and finally at Officer Martinez. "Explain. This behavior, this focus. It's unusual." The handler swallowed. "Your Honor, this dog, he was involved in a previous missing child case. The details are sensitive, but suffice it to say he has a memory of danger, danger that he can sense even now. He's not responding randomly. He's recognizing something." The courtroom shifted uncomfortably. Lawyers whispered. Officers leaned closer to one another. The social worker knelt near the girl, brushing a loose strand of hair from her forehead. "Layla," she said softly, "can you tell me more? Do you remember anything else?" The child's eyes flickered to the dog, seeking reassurance. Then, in a voice small but firm, she said, "Dark is scary him in the house." A collective chill ran through the room. The dog's growl deepened, low and controlled, a sound that resonated with memory and instinct. Officer Martinez stepped closer, hands still firm on the leash. Every muscle in his body was tense, matching the dog's posture. This was more than reaction, it was recognition. He recalled every detail from that long-forgotten case. The subtle distress signals the dog had shown at the time, the way his instincts had tried to guide officers toward danger before the child was discovered. No one had listened fully. Reports had dismissed him as overly sensitive. But the dog had been right, even then. And now, in this courtroom, he was again trying to warn, to protect, to connect the past with the present. The social worker looked from the child to the dog, then back to the judge. "Your Honor, I believe the child is describing trauma she experienced and the dog is responding to it. The connection is remarkable, but I believe it's real. It's instinct, recognition, memory." The judge nodded slowly, glancing at Leela, then at the dog. "This is extraordinary, extraordinary and delicate. Everyone, we must proceed carefully." He lowered his voice. "This child's statements, combined with the dog's behavior, may indicate something significant that has been overlooked. Officers, review all past case files." Officer Martinez complied, pulling out his tablet and scrolling through archived reports. He read through the notes about the previous missing child case, timelines, locations, suspect descriptions, and the dog's alerts. Each note reinforced what he was feeling in the present. The dog had been accurate then, and he was accurate now. The memory was unbroken, alive, and directed. The courtroom seemed to shrink, tension pooling like water around every person present. Every whisper, every glance was heavy with anticipation. The child's memory, the dog's instincts, the echoes of a past failure, they had converged into a single, electric moment. What had begun as a routine custody hearing had transformed into a revelation waiting to be unpacked. Even the spectators, silent witnesses to the scene, felt it. There was something undeniable about the connection between the child and the dog, something that went beyond law or protocol. The energy in the room was almost tangible, as though the past itself had walked into the courthouse, wearing the guise of innocence and instinct. Miss Thompson knelt next to the girl again. "Sweetheart, can you tell me more? Can you show me?" The girl's small finger wavered slightly, then strengthened, pointing with absolute certainty. Her eyes, wide and unwavering, met the dog's gaze. The German shepherd responded with a subtle movement forward, acknowledging her presence and her warning. Officer Martinez exhaled slowly. He realized now that this dog was more than trained muscle. He was witness, protector, and interpreter. The child's words were guiding him, guiding the adults in the room toward a truth that had been buried for years. And the dog's memory, decades in the making, had awakened to corroborate it. The judge adjusted his glasses, leaning back slightly in his chair. "This court will need to consider the significance of what we have witnessed. Clearly, the child's statements, coupled with the dog's reactions, cannot be ignored. We are dealing with evidence, instinct, and memory that intersect in ways the law rarely contemplates." The child remained seated, small, trembling slightly, yet resolute. The dog's eyes never left her. Outside, sunlight streaked the courthouse walls, a quiet reminder that even ordinary days could hold extraordinary moments. The past and present were merging here, under the formal gaze of law, and every adult present knew that what happened next could change everything. In the quiet tension, the court understood. The dog remembered. The child remembered. And together, their instincts and memories were about to bring the truth to light. Leela Harper, just 3 years old, had lived most of her life in quiet observation. Doctors and therapists had insisted she was too young to remember the details of her early trauma. Her small world had been reduced to routines, therapy sessions, gentle reassurances, and the occasional visits with social workers who tried to coax her into speech. Words came sparingly from her lips, often delayed, carefully measured. But beneath her silence lay something powerful, a memory that refused to fade, a story she carried even when the adults around her doubted it. The courthouse seemed to shrink around her as she continued to point at the police dog. Her tiny finger trembled, but her gaze remained locked onto the K9. The dog, trained for years to detect danger, sensed what the child could not yet fully articulate: recognition. There was something in the energy the girl emitted, a subtle echo of fear and awareness, that resonated with the dog's instincts. Every movement, every breath the child took, triggered memories buried deep within the animal's mind. Miss Thompson crouched beside her, trying to encourage words. "Leela, honey, can you tell me where it happened? Who hurt you?" The child's lips pressed together in concentration. Then slowly she whispered, "The house, Darkham, scary." Her voice was barely audible, yet the words carried weight far beyond her age. The officers, lawyers, and judge could feel the gravity of her statements even without fully understanding the details. Officer Martinez watched the dog carefully. Its body had stiffened, tail lowered, ears forward. The growl, low and steady, vibrated with a message only those attuned to canine instincts could interpret. This was not fear or aggression. It was recognition, protection, and urgency combined. The dog had remembered a past event in perfect alignment with the child's recollection. In this moment, instincts bridged memory across species, forming a bond no paperwork or testimony could replicate. The judge adjusted his glasses, studying the girl carefully. "Miss Thompson," he said quietly, "please ensure the child is not pressured, but any details she can provide are valuable." Miss Thompson nodded, resting a reassuring hand on Leela's shoulder. The girl's eyes flickered to the dog again, as if seeking permission or acknowledgement. The dog's head tilted slightly, ears twitching. The silent communication between them was profound, a connection beyond words, built on instinct, memory, and unspoken trust. Leela took a deep breath and continued. "He locked me, basement dark." Each word, though spoken softly, sent a ripple of tension through the courtroom. Officer Martinez's pulse quickened. He had trained for countless high-risk situations, but nothing had prepared him for this. A toddler describing trauma with precision, her words triggering the dog's memory, both working together to reveal truth. Lawyers whispered urgently, scanning old case files. Officers exchanged knowing glances, and the judge remained silent, absorbing the weight of what was unfolding. Ms. Thompson encouraged gently, "Leela, do you remember anything else? Anything that can help us?" The child hesitated, her small hands gripping her stuffed bear tightly. Then, in a voice quivering with both fear and clarity, she said, "He came back, I hid, dog, help." The room went still. The dog growled softly, more insistent now, stepping slightly closer to Leela as though acknowledging her courage and her memory. It was a moment of astonishing clarity. The child's memory was no longer vague or scattered. It was precise, detailed, and urgent. And the dog's instincts, honed through years of search and rescue and protection, validated her words. The courtroom understood at some deep, unspoken level that the two had formed an extraordinary partnership, one of memory, instinct, and truth. Officer Martinez exhaled slowly, steadying himself. "He remembers," he muttered to no one in particular, his eyes fixed on the dog. The K9's alertness, the low rumble in its throat, the unwavering gaze, it all confirmed what Leela had just said. There was danger, past and present, intertwined in a story that adults had long attempted to dismiss. Now it could no longer be ignored. The judge's voice was soft, measured, yet imbued with gravity. "This court recognizes that what we are witnessing is extraordinary. Ms. Thompson, please continue to guide the child. Officers, please review all pertinent files, both current and historical. We are dealing with testimony and evidence that extend beyond normal expectations." He glanced at the dog, then back at Leela. "It appears the dog's training and instincts are aligned with the child's memory. That is remarkable." Lawyers shuffled papers, eyes darting across the courtroom, nodding every word, every gesture, every tremor of the child's hands. The social worker, aware of the stakes, spoke gently. "Leela, can you tell us what he looked like? Anything about him?" Leela's brow furrowed, concentration deepening. "Tall mask, angry, scary hands." Her words were simple, fragmented, but the meaning was clear. She had retained vivid images of the trauma, images most adults could scarcely recall. Officer Martinez whispered to his partner, "It matches the description from the old case. Every detail lines up." The K-9 shifted, stepping slightly forward, still low to the ground, tail coiled, ears pricked. The dog's reactions were subtle but unmistakable: recognition, protection, and an urgent warning. Every adult in the room began to realize that the child and the dog were revealing facts previously hidden, truths that had been buried under time, paperwork, and adult assumptions. The courtroom's tension grew palpable. Every whisper, every movement carried weight. The social worker knelt, brushing a strand of hair from Leela's face. "You're safe now," she said softly. "The dog is here to protect you. Everything is going to be okay." Leela's eyes softened slightly, but she remained vigilant. Her memory, raw and vivid, had aligned perfectly with the dog's instincts. Together, they had become a force no adult could ignore. The judge tapped his fingers lightly on the bench, absorbing the extraordinary situation. "This court acknowledges the significance of these events. We are witnessing the convergence of memory, instinct, and protective behavior that cannot be ignored. Officers, please ensure the child's safety, and legal counsel, take detailed notes. We must proceed carefully, but we must also act decisively." The child's small frame seemed to grow larger in the room, filled with courage and clarity. She had spoken, despite her age, despite fear. And the dog, her silent ally, had confirmed every nuance with instincts trained over years and shaped by experience. Together, they had shifted the narrative, drawing attention to truths that had been overlooked or dismissed. Outside, sunlight filtered through the courthouse windows, casting long shadows across polished floors. Inside, every adult present felt the weight of what was happening. The child's memory, vivid and accurate, had aligned perfectly with the dog's instincts. And now the room waited, tense, uncertain, and aware that the next revelations could change everything. The ordinary custody hearing had transformed into something extraordinary, a testimony of memory and instinct, courage and trust. The child had remembered and the dog had remembered. Together, they had begun to illuminate a truth that adults had failed to see for years. And as the recess was called, whispers spread, pens scribbled notes, and the courthouse seemed to hold its collective breath, anticipating the revelations that would come next. In that moment, Leela Harper, just 3 years old, had become the central figure in a story that transcended age, species, and expectation. And the dog, loyal and disciplined, had become more than a trained officer. He had become a witness, a protector, and a bridge between memory and justice. The next steps would reveal the full truth, but the foundation had been laid. The child's words, coupled with the dog's instincts, had begun a process that would change lives, uncover secrets, and challenge assumptions in ways no one could have predicted. The courtroom, once orderly and predictable, had descended into a quiet storm. Murmurs rippled like a wave, punctuated by the occasional shuffle of papers or the clicking of pens on legal pads. Lawyers whispered urgently to one another, officers exchanged tense glances, and the judge sat forward in his chair, eyes fixed on the small figure of Leela Harper and the German shepherd beside her. Something extraordinary was unfolding, a convergence of memory, instinct, and truth that no protocol could anticipate. Officer Martinez's grip on the leash was steady, but his heart pounded. The dog, coiled like a spring, had remained rigidly attentive since the girl first pointed. Its growls were low, controlled warning signals, not threats, but they conveyed urgency in a way words could not. The K-9's training had always emphasized protection of children, but today it was doing more than following orders. It was confirming, validating, and guiding adults toward a reality they had long overlooked. "Your Honor," one of the officers whispered urgently, "the dog is reacting to the child, not the surroundings. He's something from the past." The judge leaned forward, eyebrows knitted, intrigued despite himself. "Explain," he said. The officer's voice was steady but tinged with awe. "This K-9 was involved in a missing child case years ago. The investigation was closed abruptly, but the dog remembers. And now he's reacting to the child. She may be connected to that case. The room held its breath. Spectators glanced at one another, exchanging disbelief and curiosity. Lawyers flipped through folders, scanning old reports, memos, and evidence logs. The social worker knelt beside Leela, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "Sweetheart, can you tell us anything else?" The girl's eyes flicked to the dog again, seeking confirmation. She swallowed, then whispered, "He came back. I hid dog help." A shiver ran through the courtroom. Every adult present recognized the weight of what had been said. The dog growled, low and insistent, stepping slightly forward. It was more than instinct. It was memory validating memory. Officer Martinez's pulse quickened. He had worked with K9s in dangerous situations before, but nothing like this. The child's memory, precise and vivid, aligned perfectly with the dog's instincts, creating a chain of evidence that was impossible to ignore. The judge raised his hand, calling for silence. "This court must proceed with caution," he said, voice steady but firm. "Officers, review all past case files and evidence. Legal counsel, document every statement. Social services, ensure the child is protected at all times. We are dealing with extraordinary circumstances that demand extraordinary care." Officers quietly moved to gather historical records, while lawyers and clerks scanned old case files. Each document, each scribbled note began to form a pattern. The missing child case had been closed too soon, and critical details, descriptions of the suspect, locations, and witness statements, had been overlooked or dismissed. But the child's statements and the dog's responses now illuminated connections that had remained hidden for years. The courtroom seemed to pulse with tension. Every whisper carried significance. The child's small hands clutched her stuffed bear, but her eyes remained vigilant, locked on the dog. The K9 mirrored her focus, ears pricked, body tense but controlled. They were in sync, two beings bridging memory and instinct in a way the humans could only observe. Ms. Thompson leaned closer to the girl. "Leela, can you show us where he went? Where he was?" The child's tiny finger trembled but remained pointed. Her eyes were steady, conveying certainty far beyond her years. Officer Martinez observed the dog's reaction, ears twitching, tail coiled, muscles tense. The canine's body language reinforced the girl's gestures, an unspoken confirmation of the truth she was revealing. Lawyers scrambled to connect dots. Officers retrieved long-forgotten evidence, photographs, reports, surveillance footage, witness statements. Each piece, when examined in light of the child's recollections and the dog's behavior, revealed inconsistencies in the original investigation. Events once thought trivial now appeared critical. The perpetrator, previously unidentified, had left a trail that had gone unnoticed, yet the dog and the girl had found it. The judge leaned back slightly, absorbing the scene. "This court acknowledges that what we are witnessing cannot be dismissed as coincidence," he said. "The child's statements, corroborated by the dog's reactions, indicate a sequence of events previously overlooked. We will proceed carefully, but we must also recognize the gravity of these revelations." Officer Martinez exchanged glances with the lead detective. "We need to secure the room," he said quietly. "There could be danger, past or present." The officers nodded, moving strategically, aware that the dog's instincts could be signaling threats humans had yet to perceive. Every eye in the courtroom followed Leela and the K9. The tension was almost unbearable, yet there was also awe at the remarkable alignment of memory, trauma, and instinct. The social worker encouraged Leela gently. "You're safe now, sweetie. Can you tell us more about him?" The child hesitated, then whispered, "Mask hands scary, he hurt me." The dog growled again, low and deliberate, validating every word. Officer Martinez took careful notes, realizing that this canine's instincts were functioning as an extension of the child's memory, an untrained witness bridging gaps adults had failed to see. Lawyers pored over every line of old reports, comparing notes with Leela's statements. They discovered overlooked inconsistencies, times that didn't match, locations ignored, leads abandoned too quickly. The child's memory, precise yet fragmented, was suddenly the key to reopening a case everyone thought had ended. And the dog, responding instinctively, was guiding the adults toward a clarity they had lacked for years. The judge called for a brief recess, though the air was tense with anticipation. Officers remained vigilant, scanning the room while legal teams quietly debated the next steps. Ms. Thompson knelt beside the girl, stroking her hair gently. "You're doing so well, Leela," she said softly. "The dog is helping us understand everything. You're very brave." Leela's small hand relaxed slightly, though her gaze remained fixed on the K9. Outside the courtroom, murmurs spread among courthouse staff and spectators. People spoke in hushed tones about the child, the dog, and the extraordinary situation unfolding. But inside, the adults closest to the events understood that the moment was not merely unusual, it was unprecedented. The child's memory and the dog's instinct had forced the courtroom to confront truths long buried, facts long ignored, and connections long forgotten. As the recess continued, Officer Martinez knelt beside the K9. "Good job, boy," he whispered. "Stay alert, stay calm." The dog's eyes remained on the child, ears twitching, tail low but tense. He was not merely a trained officer, he was a guardian, a witness, and a guide. He understood danger, remembered past trauma, and now worked seamlessly with the child to uncover truths no human could perceive alone. The courtroom remained in organized chaos. Papers were shuffled, evidence reviewed, and whispered conversations filled every corner. The judge conferred quietly with attorneys, carefully considering every step. Social workers ensured the child remained protected while officers monitored every movement in the room. And through it all, Leela and the dog remained connected, silent partners in a revelation that would not be ignored. By the time the recess ended, the stage had been set for the next act. Every adult in the courtroom understood that the child's memory and the dog's instincts had exposed a story long hidden. The dog had recognized danger before words were spoken. The child had remembered trauma that adults had long assumed forgotten. Together, they had begun to illuminate a truth that could no longer be ignored, forcing the courtroom to confront events that had remained unresolved for years. The ordinary custody hearing had transformed into something extraordinary. The courtroom had become a place where instinct, memory, and courage intersected, where the smallest voice and the most disciplined K9 commanded attention. The next steps would determine not only justice for the past, but protection for the present. And as the gavel struck softly to call the hearing back to order, every adult present knew that the story was far from over, but that the truth, guided by a child and a dog, was finally beginning to surface. The courtroom was tense, suffused with anticipation. Every whisper, every shuffle of papers felt amplified as if the walls themselves held their collective breath. The child, Leela Harper, sat clutching her stuffed bear, eyes never leaving the German shepherd beside her. The K9, coiled and alert, had become more than a witness. He was a guide, a silent interpreter of danger that no human authority had been able to perceive before. Officer Martinez knelt beside the dog, leash taut but controlled. "Focus," he murmured, aware that the animal's instincts were now leading the investigation in a way that the adults could barely comprehend. The dog's ears twitched, nostrils flaring, body tense but restrained. It was responding to subtle cues, the child's energy, her gestures, even the faintest sense that humans could not detect. Every movement signaled recognition, danger, memory, and urgency. Ms. Thompson crouched next to Leela. "Sweetheart, can you show us where it happened?" Leela's tiny finger trembled, then strengthened. "Basement, dark, hide him," she whispered. Her voice was small but resolute. Officer Martinez immediately signaled for security to secure the courtroom entrances, aware that the K9's behavior indicated the presence of danger, even if unseen. The room shifted, everyone acutely aware that the past and present were colliding. The judge adjusted his glasses, leaning forward. "We must take these statements seriously," he said. "Officers, coordinate with detectives. Legal counsel, document everything. Social services, ensure the child is protected at all times." His tone was calm, but the underlying tension was palpable. The courtroom had transformed into a nexus where instinct, memory, and justice intersected. Detectives entered with folders containing old case files, photographs, police reports, witness statements, and sketches from years ago. Lawyers spread documents across the bench, scrutinizing details that had been ignored or dismissed in the past. Every piece of evidence was now being reevaluated in light of Leela's memory and the dog's reactions. The alignment was undeniable. Each statement from the child triggered confirmation from the K9, validating facts long overlooked. The child's small voice broke the silence again. "He come back, scary hands." The German shepherd growled softly, low and controlled, stepping closer to her. It was a warning, a signal that danger had not been entirely vanquished. Officer Martinez's mind raced. Every instinct told him that the dog had sensed something humans could not yet see. This was more than memory. This was an ongoing threat that had persisted in shadow. The judge nodded slowly. "We must act with caution but decisively," he said. "Detectives, please investigate all leads from the past case and correlate with present information." Lawyers continued to scribble notes furiously, connecting dates, times, and details. The child's testimony, though fragmented by age, was precise enough to reopen a case that had been considered closed for years. Leela's finger wavered slightly as she continued. "He, behind door basement chains." The German shepherd stiffened, growling louder, more insistent, every muscle in his body coiled like a spring. Officer Martinez signaled for the officers to prepare for immediate action. The K9's behavior left no doubt. The danger was real, specific, and possibly imminent. Detectives cross-referenced the child's statements with old records. They found overlooked entries, misfiled reports, and witness statements that had previously been dismissed. The puzzle began to take shape. A man had been moving through neighborhoods unnoticed, a pattern of threats and abductions that had gone untraced. Leela's memory, precise and vivid, had illuminated details that had long been lost in bureaucracy. The dog's instincts corroborated every critical element. Ms. Thompson knelt beside the child, whispering encouragement. "You're helping everyone, Leela. The dog is helping too. You're safe now, but we need your memory." The girl's eyes softened slightly, though her vigilance remained. She began to articulate the sequence of events: the basement, the chains, the fear, the hiding places she had discovered. Each description, though simple, aligned perfectly with overlooked evidence and the dog's instincts. Officer Martinez watched carefully as the K9 shifted closer to Leela, body low but alert. The growl continued, more urgent now, signaling recognition of danger lingering in the room. The dog's nostrils flared as he sniffed the air, reacting to a scent that was subtle yet unmistakable, a reminder that the perpetrator's presence, or at least traces of it, remained detectable. Every officer in the courtroom understood that the K9's instincts were guiding them toward a truth that human perception alone could not uncover. Lawyers, detectives, and court officials huddled to compare notes. Evidence that had been dismissed as inconsequential now formed a coherent picture. Locations matched the child's recollections. Descriptions aligned with old sketches. Timelines fit together seamlessly. The courtroom, once skeptical, now felt the undeniable weight of corroboration between a child's memory and a K9's instincts. The judge called the room to order. "This court acknowledges the significance of the child's statements and the dog's reactions. We are observing evidence and instinct working in tandem. Officers, detectives, please proceed immediately to secure any leads that may pose a danger." His words carried both authority and a measured urgency. Leela's finger remained pointed as she whispered, "Door basement, keys chains." The dog growled again, more insistently, as if emphasizing the truth in her words. Officer Martinez's mind raced through procedure and protocol. The child's memory and the dog's instincts were guiding them to a location, a moment in the past that remained unresolved, and possibly to danger that could resurface if ignored. Detectives mobilized, coordinating with courthouse security and officers stationed outside. Every step was taken with care, ensuring Leela remained protected. The dog, trained for high-risk operations, remained alert to any movement, any scent, any subtle change in the environment. His instincts functioned as an extension of the child's memory, bridging gaps that human senses could not perceive. The courtroom became a hive of quiet urgency. Officers reviewed blueprints of old buildings, sketches of neighborhoods, and reports that had been long forgotten. Lawyers documented every statement, noting the alignment between memory, evidence, and instinct. Ms. Thompson provided gentle reassurance to Leela, maintaining her calm while encouraging her to continue articulating memories. The child whispered, "He hide behind ladder dark," and the dog responded instantly, growling, stepping forward, and lowering his body as if preparing for immediate intervention. Officer Martinez felt a surge of adrenaline. This was no longer abstract. The danger the child remembered and the dog's instincts were converging into actionable intelligence. Every adult in the courtroom understood that the next moves could change the course of the case and possibly save lives. The judge rose, voice steady but commanding. "This court recognizes the extraordinary circumstances. Officers, detectives, proceed. Ensure the safety of the child and the public. Legal counsel, document all findings. Social services, maintain support. We are witnessing a coordinated effort of memory, instinct, and investigation." Outside the courtroom, murmurs spread, the extraordinary nature of the event reaching everyone present. Inside, the adults closest to the child and dog understood that this was more than testimony. It was a revelation. Leela's memory, the dog's instincts, and the rediscovered evidence were converging to illuminate a truth that had remained hidden for years. As detectives prepared to follow the leads, Leela's voice trembled slightly but remained clear. "Keys, chains, basement, he can't hide now." The dog growled low, a signal of recognition, anticipation, and protection. Officer Martinez felt the full weight of the moment. The child and the dog together were directing adults toward a danger no one else could perceive. The ordinary custody hearing had become extraordinary. The courtroom, witnesses, officers, and legal teams were now united by a single purpose: uncovering the truth, guided by the smallest witness and the most loyal protector. Every movement, every word, every instinct was part of a delicate choreography, revealing a story that had been buried in shadows for years. The next step was clear. The investigation would proceed with urgency, guided by the child's memory, corroborated by the K-9's instincts, and documented meticulously by every adult present. The culmination of years-old trauma, instinctual memory, and diligent investigation was unfolding in real time. The courtroom, once orderly, was now a nexus of revelation, protection, and the pursuit of justice. The courtroom felt different now, charged, electric, as if the air itself was holding its breath. Every adult present knew that the ordinary proceedings had shifted into something extraordinary. The child, Leela Harper, 3 years old yet more courageous than anyone could imagine, sat clutching her stuffed bear. The German shepherd remained alert beside her, ears pricked, muscles taut, growling lowly but controlled. Together they had become an unspoken force, bridging memory and instinct, guiding the adults toward a truth long buried. Officer Martinez adjusted the leash carefully. "Stay calm, stay focused," he whispered to the dog. The K-9's eyes never left the child, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. He had guided countless operations, but never one like this. Here, instinct, memory, and human insight were intertwined, forming a path that no protocol could have dictated. The perpetrator's presence, hidden for years, was about to be confronted. Detectives moved with quiet urgency, carrying folders, blueprints, and evidence from the old case. Legal counsel documented every moment meticulously, aware that the courtroom had become both witness and participant in an investigation unfolding in real time. Ms. Thompson knelt beside Leela, providing gentle reassurances while allowing the child to articulate her memories. Every word from the child was a guide. Every growl, movement, and gaze from the dog confirmed the path forward. "Leela," Ms. Thompson said softly, "can you show us where he went?" The girl's small finger pointed, shaking but determined. "Basement, behind door, chains, dark." The dog growled in low agreement, stepping slightly forward, tail low but tense. Officer Martinez exhaled. This was no coincidence. The child and the dog were revealing a precise location, a hidden truth, and possibly the danger itself. The judge, observing intently, adjusted his glasses. "This court acknowledges the extraordinary circumstances. Officers, detectives, you are authorized to follow all leads immediately. Ensure the safety of the child and the public. Legal counsel, document every step. Social services, maintain oversight." His calm authority belied the tension in the room, where every adult was aware of the moment's gravity. Detectives reviewed the blueprints of the old property Leela had described. Each detail aligned perfectly: basement, hidden room, ladder, location of chains. The girl's fragmented yet precise memories were guiding the search, validated by the K9's instincts. Officer Martinez nodded to the team. "He's right. The dog knows. This is it." The growl from the German shepherd deepened, a warning, a signal that danger had not yet dissipated. Outside, a tactical team waited. Inside, the courtroom held its collective breath. The child and the dog had become the center of a coordinated effort, guiding adults to uncover the long-hidden truth. Leela's voice trembled as she whispered again, "Keys, chains, hide, scary." Every word was a beacon, every gesture a map to justice. Detectives moved with precision, guided by the child's memory and the K9's instincts. Every officer, lawyer, and court official watched in tense silence, aware that this could lead to a confrontation no one had anticipated. The air was thick with anticipation, every heartbeat echoing like a drum. The German shepherd, sensing the presence of danger, growled again, muscles coiled, nostrils flaring. The team approached the basement of the property. Leela's hand trembled as she pointed toward a hidden door. The dog crouched slightly, ready to intervene. Officer Martinez's voice was calm but firm. "Stay alert. Move carefully." Every adult felt the weight of the moment. Years of missed clues, forgotten evidence, and hidden danger were about to converge. The door creaked as detectives opened it. Inside, the shadows of the basement seemed to swallow the light. Leela's voice trembled but was unwavering. "Chains behind ladder." The German shepherd growled, advancing cautiously, ears forward, body tense. The team followed, every step measured, aware that the instinct guiding them had saved lives before. Suddenly, movement. A man emerged from the shadows, startled, desperate. What's happening?" His voice faltered. The dog growled sharply, stepping in front of Leela protectively, hackles raised, teeth bared in a warning that required no translation. Officer Martinez held the leash firmly, voice commanding, "Stop, hands where we can see them." The man froze, eyes darting between the child and the dog. Every instinct told him he had underestimated them. The German shepherd's gaze was unwavering, growl low and threatening, signaling imminent consequence if he made a move. The child, trembling slightly but resolute, pointed directly at him. "Him not safe." Her words, simple yet undeniable, reverberated through the room, carrying the authority of truth. Detectives quickly restrained the man. Officer Martinez kept the dog in position, body coiled, alert to any sudden threat. The hidden chains and evidence in the basement confirmed Leela's recollections. The perpetrator, finally confronted, had no room to escape. His presence, hidden for years, had been exposed by memory, instinct, and courage. The courtroom and the property team were awash in relief, awe, and disbelief. The child had remembered, the dog had reacted, and the adults had followed their lead to uncover the truth. Evidence that had been dismissed decades ago was now central to a case finally being resolved. The small girl and the loyal K9 had bridged the gap between past failures and present justice. Back in the courtroom, the judge addressed everyone, voice steady but filled with gravity. "This court recognizes the extraordinary contribution of both the child and the K9. Their actions have led to the discovery of evidence that could not have been obtained through ordinary means. Their courage, instinct, and memory have brought justice closer to fulfillment. Leela's eyes softened as the dog stepped closer, lowering his body in a protective gesture. Officer Martinez knelt beside him, whispering, "Good job, boy, you did it." The K9's tail wagged slightly, a rare relaxation after tension, but his gaze never left the child. He had fulfilled his role as protector, witness, and guide. Ms. Thompson knelt beside Lila, brushing hair from her forehead. "You were so brave," she said softly. "The dog helped us all understand. You kept everyone safe." The girl's small hand rested on the dog's head, a gesture of trust, gratitude, and connection. The courtroom witnessed a bond that transcended species, a partnership forged in trauma, memory, and instinct. Detectives and officers secured all evidence, documenting the basement, chains, and other materials that confirmed the girl's memories. Lawyers ensured that every step was recorded meticulously. The child, though small and fragile, had become central to uncovering the truth. The dog had validated her memories with instincts honed over years of training. Together, they had led the adults to justice. The judge concluded, voice firm and steady. "Today, we have witnessed an extraordinary alliance between human memory and canine instinct. This court acknowledges their crucial role in uncovering truth that had been hidden for years. Justice, though delayed, is now within reach." Outside the courtroom, murmurs of amazement spread. People spoke of the 3-year-old who remembered and the German shepherd who guided adults to danger. The story would travel, inspiring awe at the bond between a child and a dog, courage, memory, and instinct. Inside, however, the adults closest to the events understood that this was more than a story. It was the resolution of years-long trauma, a triumph of vigilance, and a demonstration of how extraordinary courage and instinct could overcome long-forgotten threats. As the day concluded, Leela sat with Ms. Thompson, small hands entwined with the dog's fur. The K9, now relaxed but alert, rested his head near her shoulder. Officer Martinez watched quietly, awestruck. Years of training, countless missions, and disciplined instinct had led to this singular moment. A 3-year-old child's memory, a loyal K9's instincts, and the unwavering courage of adults had converged to bring justice at last. The courtroom, once ordinary, had witnessed the extraordinary. A child had spoken, a dog had guided, and together they had unveiled a truth hidden for years. The perpetrator had been exposed, evidence secured, and justice had begun to take its rightful course. And in the quiet moments afterward, as sunlight streamed through the courthouse windows, Leela Harper and the German shepherd shared a silent acknowledgement. They had changed the course of events together, their bond forever a testament to courage, memory, and instinct.